I love how you start the book.
I was addicted to certainty.
You were addicted to certainty.
Yeah.
And certainty, the idea of certainty was, in a way, destroying your life.
Absolutely. I just needed to know. I wanted to know. I wanted to know what was going to unfold in my life. I wanted to know if my husband would always stay with me. I wanted to know if I was going to get a promotion at work. I wanted to know if my stocks were going to go up. I wanted to know if my parents would stay well. I wanted to know I'd be safe living in New York City. And when you have all these wants, you start to write stories. You start to write stories about how life needs to be for you to be happy.
And you start to control life.
You try to in your mind. But what happens is life is uncertain. There's always the unexpected. So I'd write these stories, and then life would give me something else.
And how did you feel when things didn't turn out the certainty that you...
I thought that was it. I thought it was game over. How could things change? How could things get better? What am I going to do with my life? It's not going the way that I'd hoped. And this was constant. It was almost as if both my feet were on the gas constantly, and my mind was going, rattling all the time. And it was just becoming more and more painful every day.
You were in pain and in misery, and you were suffering. I mean, you're doing pretty good. You were a lawyer.
So I was working for a large firm, and then I branched out into my own firm. I had a lot of outside success, but inside I was in a lot of pain. And I always had this anxiety as to what was going to happen next. And if I didn't know, I projected that it would be negative. So it wasn't like I didn't know and I was saying, wow, this is great. I didn't know, and therefore, because I didn't know, it could be bad, or maybe it won't work out. And that's where the anxiety and a lot of the frustration and the unhappiness came from. And for me, I didn't know what was really ailing me. Now that it's over, I do know. But for me, I needed it to be different because I felt that pain. And one day, I went to my Qigong teacher, and another unexpected thing happened in my life, and I'm like, you don't understand, this just happened, what am I going to do? And he slowed me down. He said, Allison, I'm going to tell you a story. And he told me the story about the farmer. And a lot of people have heard that story before. It's a Taoist story. And the farmer has a horse, and the horse runs away. And the neighbor comes by and says, you have the worst luck. And the farmer's like, maybe. And the next day, the horse comes back with 5 mares, and the neighbor comes by and says to the farmer, you have the best luck. And the farmer's like, maybe. And the next day, the farmer's son is on the horse, and he falls off and he breaks his leg. And the neighbor comes by and says, you have the worst luck.
Get
and the
rid
farmer's
of that neighbor.
like, and the farmer says, maybe. And the next day, the army comes to take the son to war. But because he's broke his leg, he can't go. And the neighbor comes by and says, oh, you have the best luck. And the farmer's like, maybe. And in that moment, I felt breath. I felt space, because I was so busy worrying that the horse was going to run away that it never occurred to me that he could come back.
Was that really the story that shifted you?
It shifted everything for me. And what's interesting, in the Taoist, if you speak to a Taoist, the story's supposed to mean that life keeps changing, that there's no attachment, it keeps changing. But for me, it brought hope. It made me realize that maybe it could be bad, but maybe it could be good. And all of a sudden, I went home and I just started to play with that idea. And every time a negative thought would come up, what's going to happen? I was like, well, maybe it'll be okay. Maybe something else will happen. And all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, not only was I not having negative thoughts, I wasn't having any thoughts. It's almost if my whole entire mind just fell into this neutral silence. And then, as I was silent, all of a sudden I was open. And all of a sudden, when your mind clears, everything starts happening. Things start coming to you. You start to be more creative. And it was the beginning of a new life for me. And then I started to share it with all my clients. And it's become the philosophy of maybe.
That really does touch me. I really feel how you've shifted. And I've known you a long time. I didn't know you were such a certainty.
You didn't know I was an addict.
But I didn't also know that you had this awakening around maybe. And it's really beautiful the way you relay the depth of that transformation. I mean, it's so simple, but yet I can see something switched in your brain and your thinking, and a new world opened up to you.